I grew up believing I lived in the greatest nation on earth. I memorized every slogan, saluted every portrait, sang every marching song. My father was a colonel, powerful on the outside, trapped by the system on the inside. Respected, feared, the kind of man who rarely smiled but made sure we never went hungry. I remember the sound of his boots more than the sound of laughter. In the winters, the lights went out for weeks. We slept in layers of coats. My mother boiled tree bark into soup and told us it was medicine. I watched my classmates grow thinner. Watched their eyes go dull. But we didn't question it. Hunger was normal. Cold was normal. Silence was survival. I studied hard, made my family proud. Told myself the suffering meant something. That we were building a great nation. That the outside world was worse. I believed it all, until I didn't. It started at the teachers' training college. The propaganda films no longer matched reality. The slogans sounded tired, and the faces of my classmates, lean, hungry, pretending to be proud, told a different story. I started noticing things I wasn't supposed to notice. The way our textbooks changed every year. The way people disappeared and no one asked why. A quiet crack formed inside me. I didn't know what to call it yet. One afternoon, a cheap USB drive from China circulated among the students. Forbidden dramas. South Korean actors. Bright city lights. Laughing families. I watched anyway. What I saw shook everything. The colors were too bright. The people were too well fed. The children laughed without looking over their shoulders. I realized it all at once. Everything I had been taught might have been a lie. I was expected to graduate and become what the regime called a trumpet of revolution. Stand before children and repeat the same lies that had stolen my own childhood. I couldn't do it. For the first time in my life, I wanted out. But leaving North Korea meant death if I were caught. And death for anyone associated with me. Still, staying felt like a much slower kind of dying. So I began to plan. My father worked in a high-ranking office. Bribes flowed like water. At night, I watched him hide American dollars inside the ceiling boards. A week later, the house was empty. I climbed onto a stool. Peeled back the board. My hands trembled. $1,200. More money than I had ever touched. To me, it was simply freedom. I found a border captain who could be bribed. $50, he said. I paid him, and for the first time, escape felt real. My mother had always been perceptive. Watchful in ways only a North Korean mother could be. When I was young, she taught me how to read silence. How to know when a neighbor was listening through the walls. How to smile even when my stomach ached. Survival, she once whispered, is knowing what not to say. I never forgot that. One tiny mistake exposed everything. I had eaten boiled eggs before my journey, a superstition for safe travel. In our culture, the round shape of the egg meant a smooth path ahead. She noticed the shells in the waste bin. She knew I never ate the yolks. On the morning I planned to leave, I crept toward the door. The wooden frame groaned beneath my fingers. A grip clamped down on my collar. Her voice was low, steady. Where are you going? My heart stopped. I couldn't turn around. If I looked into her eyes, everything inside me would collapse. She led me outside. We walked in silence down a dark road. Snow crunched under our feet. The air bit at my face. I could see my breath. I could feel hers behind me. Finally, she stepped beside me. Whispered. Are you going to China? I said nothing. Are you going to South Korea? Still silence. Then she exhaled. Long, trembling. Like releasing something she had carried for decades. I could break your legs and drag you home. But your life does not belong to me. Her voice cracked. If you must go, then go. But promise me one thing. Do not die. At the train station, she added. I believe you will live. You are stronger than you know. Then her voice hardened. Do not look back. Not once. I boarded the train. Tried not to cry. As the train jolted forward, I wiped the frost off the window. And I saw her. Not standing proudly. Not waving. Crouched behind a concrete pillar. Shoulders shaking. Hands covering her face. I nearly jumped off. gripped the seat until my knuckles turned white. But I remembered her words. Do not look back. I turned away, swallowed every tear I couldn't afford to shed. Hours later, I arrived at the border village. The air was different here. Colder, tighter. People walked with their heads down, as if fear itself patrolled the streets. I waited in a darkened house. Couldn't sleep. Every sound made me flinch. Somewhere in the distance, I heard dogs barking. A truck engine rumbling. I thought about my mother. Wondered if she had made it home. Wondered if they were already questioning her. I whispered into the dark, I'm sorry. No one answered. The captain arrived at 4 a.m. His face was stone. His voice barely a breath. It's time. We moved through trees toward the river. The Tumen. I had heard stories about this river my whole life. People who tried to cross and never came back. Bodies found frozen in the ice. Now I was standing at its edge. Dark, narrow, deadly quiet. My foot touched the icy water. The cold sliced through my legs like knives. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. But there was nothing to turn back to. I gripped a thin rope stretched across the river. Pushed forward. One step. Another. Another. The current tugged at my ankles. The rocks shifted beneath me. Halfway across, I slipped. My hand plunged into the water. For a moment, I lost the rope. Panic surged. Then gunshots cracked the air. 3 flashes lit the dark. Bullets slammed into rocks behind me. Sparks flew. I flattened myself in the water. Whispered words I hadn't said in years. God? Please. Please. I didn't know if anyone was listening. But the words came anyway. From the Chinese side, the captain threw down his backpack strap. Grab it. I lunged. Caught it. Heaved myself up the muddy cliff as bullets kept firing. My knees tore open. My palms bled. But I climbed. When I reached the top, my legs nearly collapsed. I lay in the dirt, gasping. Shaking. China. I had crossed. But I wasn't safe. The captain led me to a farmhouse where I was told to hide. That first night in China, I couldn't stop shaking. Not from cold, from the silence. No gunshots, no shouting, no patrols, just stillness. I didn't trust it. Over the next few days, other North Korean escapees gathered. 11 in total. Some had been hiding in China for years, sold into marriages, locked in basements, surviving in the shadows. Others were like me, freshly escaped, still bleeding. There was a woman named Sun Yi who had been trafficked to a Chinese farmer. She escaped after 3 years. There was a teenage boy who hadn't spoken since he watched his father get shot at the border. And there was a 5-year-old girl named Min Young. She clung to whoever was closest. Called every woman, Mama. I held her hand during the bus rides. Let her sleep against my shoulder. Sometimes she whispered, Are we going home? I never knew what to say. We traveled quietly, bus to bus, checkpoint to checkpoint. When authorities boarded, I pretended to sleep. Drool on my cheek, a Chinese book in my lap. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they could hear it. But the disguise worked. Every time, a broker led us south. Toward Myanmar, toward Thailand. We waded through roaring rivers. Climbed hills so steep my legs burned for days. Slept in sheds and truck beds with no blankets. One night, we pulled leeches from Min Young's feet. She whimpered but didn't cry. Mama, hurt? I know, sweetheart. Just a little more. Some nights, guilt kept me awake. I thought about my mother. My father. My brother. What are they doing to them because of me? Should I have stayed? Did I destroy my family to save myself? I had no answers. Only silence. Only forward. By the time we reached Thailand, our clothes were torn. Our feet infected. Our bodies bruised. We thought we had made it. At a checkpoint, Thai police demanded passports. None of us had any. The broker whispered, Say you're South Korean. One officer pointed to paper and markers. Draw your country's flag. None of us could. We had never seen it. The moment the papers stayed blank, they knew. We were handcuffed, taken to a detention center. The cell was hot, humid, crawling with lizards. We slept on the floor shoulder to shoulder. The toilet didn't flush. Rats scratched inside the walls. Days passed. No one came. Some in the group whispered the nightmare. What if they send us back to China? China will return us to North Korea. We will die. I curled in a corner. Hugged my knees. Whispered again. God, please don't leave me. Finally, I approached a guard. Whispered through the bars. Offered him my last $100 bill. We didn't know if he was helping us or setting a trap. He hesitated. Glanced down the hallway. Then unlocked the gate. We found a Korean-run restaurant in the city. The owner saw our torn clothes. Our sunken faces. She didn't ask questions. She called local church contacts. A missionary met us at dawn. He was gentle, soft-spoken, nothing like the monsters I had been taught to fear. Are you seeking sanctuary? We nodded. He led us to a safe house outside the city. A cross hung above the door. I couldn't breathe. North Korean textbooks had taught me since childhood that missionaries were evil. That Christians kidnapped children and drained their blood. That churches were places of torture disguised as worship. I hesitated at the doorway. But I had nowhere else to go. Inside, they were gentle. Hot food. Clean clothes. Medicine for our wounds. A missionary woman named Grace sat beside me that first night. She didn't push. Didn't preach. She just said, "You're safe here. You can rest." I didn't believe her, but I was too tired to argue. In the mornings, they prayed softly. In the afternoons, they taught English. During Bible study, they read verses I had never heard. They read words I had never been allowed to hear openly. One line shook me. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I didn't understand why it made my eyes sting. Days passed. I noticed something strange. The Christians didn't treat me like a criminal, or a burden, or a project. They treated me like a daughter. One night, during a quiet prayer session, a pastor placed a silver bowl above my head. Water trickled down my hair. He prayed blessings over my life. The moment the water touched me, I felt something shift. A warmth. A brightness. Something I couldn't explain. Like someone opened a window inside my chest that had been sealed shut my entire life. I didn't have words for it then. But something was changing. Something was being healed. Weeks later, I boarded a plane to South Korea. My first time ever on an aircraft. When the engines roared, I gripped the armrest so hard my knuckles turned white. Halfway through the flight, the speaker announced, "You are now entering the airspace of the Republic of Korea." Every emotion I had buried, fear, guilt, longing, exhaustion, crashed over me at once. I cried silently, face in my hands. I didn't know what awaited me, but I had lived. When my plane landed in Seoul, I stepped into a world so bright it felt unreal. Marble floors, automatic doors, clean air, people laughing, not whispering, not glancing over their shoulders. I walked slowly, almost afraid to touch anything. Officials greeted us with warm voices. One shook my hand. "Welcome home. You are safe." I didn't believe him. North Korean propaganda had warned us. South Korean agents pretend to be kind. They smile while they prepare the torture rooms. I expected interrogation, chains, pain. But they gave me tea, a blanket, a room to rest. I sat stiffly, eyes on the door, waiting for the kindness to end. Days passed. It never did. Routine settled in, interviews, meals, long hours in a quiet room. Then one afternoon, a familiar voice called my name. "Hannah." My blood ran cold. I turned slowly, and saw my father. He had lost weight. His uniform was gone. His posture had softened, but it was him. My legs gave out. "I'll go with you," I whispered. "Just don't hurt me." His voice cracked. "No, my daughter, I didn't come to take you back. I thought you were dead." He told me what happened after I escaped. The interrogations. The torture. The threats against our entire family. He followed every rumor, every whisper, every trail. Sometimes weeks behind me, sometimes months. Not to arrest me, to protect me. Soon after, we rescued my mother. She had been imprisoned because of my escape. When I saw her, she looked frail. Nearly unrecognizable, her skin darkened. Her body shrunken. I ran to her. My legs collapsed halfway. She knelt beside me, lifted my chin. "It's all right, my girl. We're together now." Later, my brother escaped too. One by one, the family was restored. But freedom can wound in its own way. Once I started my new life in South Korea, I struggled. The trauma I had buried for years began to surface. I felt guilt for surviving, lost in a world that moved too fast. I blamed myself for every scar my family carried. I drifted. Bars, smoky clubs, loud music that drowned my thoughts. I drank too much, slept too little, pushed away the very faith that had carried me through the river. I told myself I didn't deserve peace. One morning, I collapsed with searing pain in my side. Rushed to the hospital. Emergency surgery. The doctors said I had nearly died. I woke up in a white room. Tubes in my arms. Machines beeping. I couldn't move, could barely breathe. For the first time since crossing the river, I thought, maybe this is where it ends. Lying in that bed, staring at the ceiling, I began to speak to God again. Not in polished prayers, in raw whispers. Why am I still here? What do you want from me? Slowly, a realization settled over me. I had survived the river. The bullets. The jungles. The detention centers. The loneliness, not by accident. Not by luck, by grace. And I had been running from it. When I finally returned to church, I sat in the back pew. The room was quiet, sunlight through stained glass. The smell of old wood and candle wax. I prepared a list of failures in my head. A long apology, but the moment I whispered, "God," I broke. Tears streamed down my face, and my shoulders shook so violently, I couldn't form a single word. And in that moment, I felt it again. That same warmth from the safe house in Thailand. A presence I recognized, a comfort I didn't dare expect. In the quiet of my heart, I sensed a simple message: you wandered far, but you are still mine. From that day, my life changed. Slowly, steadily, deeply, I began sharing my testimony, traveling with missionaries to encourage others who had walked through darkness. I understood now that every step, the river, my mother's whispered, "Don't look back," the cross above the safe house door, the reunion with my family, had been woven together by a love I never knew in the North. A love that didn't demand loyalty by force. A love that rescued quietly. A love that met me in the darkest places and called me daughter. Grace, I learned, isn't something you earn. It's something that finds you, broken, wandering, ashamed, and says, "You are still mine." Years later, someone asked what kept me going. I answered softly, "I crossed the river because I wanted freedom. But I survived the river because God wasn't finished with me." Thank you for walking through this story with us today. If Hannah's journey reminded you of God's faithfulness, I pray it encourages your own heart tonight. Because no matter how far we wander, the Lord still calls us by name, and He still knows how to lead us home. If this testimony stirred something in your spirit, I invite you to subscribe to Mustard Seed Stories, where every week, we share true journeys of grace, redemption, and the quiet ways God still works in the lives of ordinary people. Thank you for listening. Which part of Hannah's story did the Holy Spirit use to speak to you today?